to pull in events from your website or from another website. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to create a new page. And let me pull up the chat as well so I can see questions if they come up. And this is just going to be called feeds. And then first one, just going to create a heading here. This is going to be a news list, and it's going to be local, which means that we're only going to be pulling in posts within the website that we're on. So this would be your own specific website that you're pulling stuff in. So to create a news list, you can add the block that is going to be called news list, as you can see right here. And as soon as you do that, it's going to pull in 3 posts by default, but there's ways that you can change it. So with that block selected, you can go here on the right where it says display options, and you can see that you can hide the caption, you can hide the date. You also have the other options here of what you want to pull in. So like I said, we're pulling in posts, but sometimes other websites have specific post types. So you might see something like news articles, or in this instance, we have documents, HTML snippets, and all that. But mostly we would just want to stick to either post or news articles for these specific feeds. So next thing here we have is categories, which allows us to pull in a specific category of a post. So if you click on that, you can see usually it gets auto-populated with the categories that are within your site. So you can just click on admission deadlines, and these are the posts that show up with that specific category. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that. Here, where you have count is how many you want to show within this list. So again, like I said, default is 3, but you can go ahead and change it to 5 if you would like, or 10. And you can see that it populates the amount that you want to that you have here. So just for this example, I'm just going to leave it at 5 so you can see what that looks like right there. You close this. Then we have advanced feed options, which will go into in the next block that we create, because that's going to allow you to pull in a post or a specific post type from another website. Right now, they're working on the and logic switch to work, which means that you'll be able to select multiple categories. So if you would like to only pull in a post that, for this example, that's admissions deadline and assistantships, you would have to click on this, and then that would pull it in. We were having some issues with that, and they're fixing that feature right now, so that should be out soon. Offset just means that it's going to skip the number that you give it. So if you put 1, it's going to skip the first item that's on the list. If you skip 2, it's going to skip the first 2, and so on and so forth. And the reason you might want to do this to skip is that if you want to have like a card that features the very first post, you might want to skip that post so it doesn't show up again down here. So you would then go to offset, and you offset by 1. So that way you don't have that duplicate post showing up on the page. So let me just get rid of some of this stuff here, cleaning it up. All right. So advanced feed, again, host, I'll talk about in a minute. And space settings is just adding space around this specific block. So adding margin to the top, you can add more space if you need to, if it's really close to the previous content. But in this case, we're keeping everything simple. So just the default will look good. So going to publish, and I'm just going to view the page. And as you can see, it's showing the posts that are within the website that I'm pulling in right now. And then the next one is pulling in posts from another website. So again, using the same block, I'm going to go to news list. Actually, let me use a heading to separate this. So heading, news list, call this remote. And then we're adding a news list here. And again, going back to the right-hand side over here, where it says advanced feed options, going to host, I am going to pull in articles from the news website. Now, when I do this, you can see that it says that no news items are found, because if we go up here to feed options, by default is pulling in the posts. On our CAHNRS news website, that specific post type is going to be news articles. So all of the news articles that you see, if we go here, all these news articles is a post type called news articles and not post. So if you ever link to the CAHNRS news website and you don't see that show up, just make sure you go ahead and change that here, and then you'll be able to see the post show up. But again, I can do 5 if I wanted to, kind of just to match what I have up here. And it's going to pull in the 5 most recent posts, or in this case, news articles that have been published on the website. But, oh, didn't mean to click that. But with the remote block, like for the news list, where you're linking to another website, you still have the options of hiding the caption if you want to hide the caption, and also hiding the date if you would like. So if you want to keep the layout of your website of your page tight like this and not have all this description and publish date, then you can just turn that off and have that show up like that. Again, it all depends on your site. So if you're having a news list on the sidebar, it makes it a little bit smaller. So if you don't want to have a bunch of content down the sidebar by having this long description, then doing something like this is probably a little bit better. Are there any questions on either using a news list for local items or remote?
Just curious, would you ever use this in a multiple column layout? Not a full wide?
Yeah, so let's do something like this. So we have columns, sidebar right, and we'll do a heading here of lorem ipsum. I know I've talked about it in the past. I'm not really good at coming up with words on the spot, but and then bunch of text here. So this would be like that kind of layout. Is that the kind of layout you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and like I was mentioning earlier, you don't want to have a bunch of text like making this column like super long. So that's where you turn off the caption and the hide date, because if not, you're gonna have this giant column here where your paragraph might be a couple like sentences. Which, let me do this really quick. And then going back here, turning off caption, date, update, and then we'll be able to see the front end, how that looks like. There you go. All right. Let me get out of here. There we go. The next item is going to be news cards. So very similar to the news list, except instead of creating a list, you're creating a card, like a card group. So if we go to news cards, you'll see it right here. Again, when you click on it, automatically populates your post. In this one, it's only populating one post, but you can change it. You can change how many items show up per row, and I'll talk about that here in a second. But again, display options. Cards per row. How many cards per row would you like to have? If you have one, you're going to have this giant card that shows up. You can go two, so that way you have one here, another one here. I'm going to skip a couple things here really quick. Just pull in three, so that way we can see what that would look like. So this is what two per row look like. Three, and then four. If you had a fourth one, we would show up right there. So it would be something like that. But again, three per row, perfect, like that. For heading level, always make sure you're keeping track of your headings and we're not skipping headings. I know by default my page heading is an H1, and I know these were H2s. My news list, remote, news cards, local, that was an H2. So I know that this needs to be an H3 because it falls under that H2. If by any chance this was H3, then you can just go here and change it to H4.
So
Or if it was
Efren,
an
I have
H5.
I just have a quick question on this. So all your pictures are horizontal. What if you have a vertical picture?
On this specific block or block, we can't control the image size, but there is one called card group. That where am I advanced? Oh, sorry, right there. Um, what am I missing here? Not sure what happened. Let me try that again. News cards. No, news cards, card group. Trying to do something that sorry. So you can control the I guess you can't from the card group either. Oh, there we go. The image ratio here, it controls all of them. So there's no way to control like one specific image. But if you have a consistent featured image, so if they're all going to be vertical like this, you can change the image ratio within the card group block.
Okay, so it will just crop however it needs to if you did something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. All right. Let's go back here. News cards, display options, headings. Hide the caption if you want to. Hide the date. Show the author. All these different options are here. If you want to use it, depending again on how you want to lay out your page. So by default, you hide the caption and show the date. But if you wanted to show the caption, maybe hide the dates. That way, you only want to show the date within this specific post. You can do that by selecting these options that you have here on the right hand side. Feed options, again, I'll talk about here in a minute when we talk about advanced feed. But same thing, you can control what category you're pulling in. So if you only want to pull in admission deadlines, you can. These don't have featured images assigned to them, which is why you see it like this. let me do 6 really quick. There we go. So if your post doesn't have a featured image, but other ones do, this is the layout that it would, this is how it would look like in the end. So you would have these that have images, but then these two don't. So that's just something also to keep in mind when you're creating articles or posts on your site, that if you do want to have all of them with featured images, it would, look like this. But if you ever, have some without featured images, then this is like the layout that it would look like. So try to either have all of them with featured images or not have featured images. So that way there's that consistency within the block when you're pulling in articles or posts. Sorry. All right, and then gonna do the same thing I did as before, where we're going to do news cards. First, let's do a heading. News cards remote. So again, just pulling in cards from another website. So advanced feed, find the name of the website, which is going to be news.cahnrs.wsu.edu. And as you can see, it says no cards found. And the reason for that is that we're pulling in posts, and the news website doesn't use posts, it uses news articles. And there you can see a news article show up, but I want to pull in 3. So I'm going to change the count to 3. And there's my 3 posts or my 3 news articles showing up. And when I go here to cards per row, just change that to 3. And let's show the caption and hide the date. So refresh, looking at our website. Again, these are local within my own site, and these are going to be articles from the main CAHNRS site that when I click on it, I get sent to that website, the news CAHNRS website, and I can read that article. Are there any questions on the news cards? No. All right. So talk about news cards. Now let's go ahead and jump over to events. So let me just do a heading here really quick. Events list, and same thing, local. And first thing that we want to do is when you have your site, you want to make sure that the events calendar plugin is activated. So if it's not activated or you can't see it, let us know. But we want to make sure that the events calendar is activated on your site. And one way to know that if it's activated is if you see this show up. So if you see events show up on the left-hand side menu, then that means that that specific plugin is activated. The next thing that we want to do to make sure that we can use the events list and the event cards plugin or blocks is to make sure that the plugins events API is activated. And I'll show you why that's important really quick. So if I refresh the page, and do events list, did not deactivate. It's not deactivating right now. If it's deactivated, you just get an error message saying that events weren't able to be found. So if you see that, just make sure that again that the API plugin is activated right here. And when you do that, you can use the events list block, which looks just like this. Again, this is my my sandbox website, so my events aren't very exciting. They're just, this is an event. But just like all the other blocks I showed, over here on the right hand side, you have the different settings that you can use to change what is being shown here on the list. So for feed options, you can select a feed, or you can just select specific events coming up within your site. You have categories. So I only have one category called CAHNRS, which doesn't have any events assigned to it. Organizations, again, if you have different organizations within your calendar that you've created, you can pull it in using that, or also by using tags. Count, control how many events show up. So if you want 3, if you only want 1, if you want 10, it again just depends on the page that you're creating and the layout. So I'll just leave it at 3. And that's going to be your feed options. And then display options, there's only one, and that just creates a dark mode where it has a dark background. And then offset under advanced feed options is this very similar to the other blocks here, where depending on what the number you add here is how many events get skipped. So if I want to skip first one, we type in 1. If I want to skip the first 3, then we type in 3. Again, just depending on how you lay out your website or the page, this is what that would be used for. If you want to exclude a specific event, you can do it as well. And then data source, this is what I'll show you here in a minute, but this allows you to pull in events from another website, which here I'll just do now. So again, I add the events list block. I go down here to advanced feed options. And down here where it says data source, we go to https events.cahnrs.wsu.edu, which is going to pull in events from our main events calendar. So as you can see, these events are being pulled in. And if I go to the front end of my site, after I scroll down here a little bit, these are my local events, and these are going to be my events that live on the CAHNRS events calendar. And by clicking on it, you get sent to that specific website as well, where you can learn more about that specific event. And just like we talked about with other blocks, when you go to feed options, you can pull in specific event categories. So if you want events that are labeled with 4-H, you can add that category there, and only the events that have 4-H assigned to them show up. All college, just depending on the category that you want to pull in. Same thing with the tags. And I'll do one more really quick, and then I'll open it up for questions, which this is just going to be event cards, which is just like a list, except it's going to be a card now. There you go. And again, this doesn't look so great because the events that I've added on my site don't really have a lot of information on them, but you can definitely see how this looks when you're pulling in actual events, like from the events calendar that we have. So give me 1 second. Nope, HTTPS. There we go. Nope. Clicking too fast and clicking on random things. So display options, again, you can control how many you want to show per row. The only thing that it doesn't have is like featured images. So right now we're just showing the title, the date of the event, and the location. But as you can see, once we go to the front end, we have those cards that show up here. And when you have this on your site and you're actually like filling it out with actual events, it's going to look just like this. This is just example events I created really quickly, but this is what it actually looks like when you have stuff filled out. Are there any questions on the events, cards, or lists?
No question.
Yep.
Could you put an event cards or event list or news cards in a carousel, like nestled into that? And they wouldn't see the list of events unless they clicked on the one that says 4-H events, and then that would show that.
Didn't mean to do that one. Add it in it.
Or is it an accordion? I'm thinking that
Oh, okay.
it
Yeah.
doesn't expand until you click on
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. That's an accordion.
Okay, then maybe have I would have a 4-H, agriculture, natural resources. Each one has events, and then it would show if a person's interested in 4-H, it would pop open. It could be. I don't know if
Let's
it's
do that
possible.
list. I think it should be, but sometimes I know with accordions they can get kind of tricky. But
Okay.
I can just test it out right now. It's not something I've done in the past. So let's update. Yep.
Cool.
As long as everything, as long as everything's labeled and good for accessibility wise, like 4-H agricultural events, and then just show all those. I think that's the only thing I see that might not cause an issue, but just making sure that everything's labeled correctly, and you should be good.
Thank you.
Yep. And then the other item is I know we've talked about it in the past, but if you ever want to link out to a post, like an article that lives somewhere else, like let's go to News CAHNRS really quick, and let's say you have this article and you don't want to copy and paste it into your posts, but it's only a one-off item where you don't want to pull in an entire list and you want to mix in with the rest of your local posts. We created, and I know we've shown it in the past couple of weeks, a way to link out to that specific article and include that link within the list of your local items. So if I go, I have way too many tabs open now. Copy the title, add a new post, which is right there. Copy the link, paste it here on the right hand side where it says external link. Click publish. Go back to my website, and you'll see it should be the first one that shows up right here. There it is. So 4-H livestock, the article that's on the news website is showing up now on my news list locally because I created a post, and now when the user clicks on it, they get sent to the website where the article lives, rather than having to recreate this entire article on here as blocks and all that stuff. You can just now link to that one article by using the external link feature that shows up here on the right hand side. And as you can see, these do have captions, but the one that we created doesn't. That's very simple to do by just going here to excerpt and just pasting or typing out, of course, information that you want the reader to know within the caption. So there's the capability to control the excerpt or the description of the article, and now you can link to the external article as well. All right. That is everything I was gonna go over. Let me know if you have any questions or if you want me to show you anything about feeds. And if there's not, then we can open it up for any question on anything. I'm gonna go ahead and stop recording now though. And